Very good morning and happy new year, everyone. Okay, so I believe last lecture Fahad introduced randomized algorithms very formally, discrete probability, the UNs, the notion of independence, and an analysis of quicksort. We'll continue with more of randomized algorithms. So I would say, the last 30, 40 years, one of the big developments in computer science in general is this power of randomization. And there is nothing in machine data, machine learning, or big data without randomization. So it's very important for you to understand this concept very well. Take your time. The slides, resources are all available. Go over them slowly and digest them very well. This is your chance, okay? Because this is the concept is very subtle. People can make easy mistakes. So we want to make sure that you understand things well. Now, so in the notion of randomized algorithms, there were two types of algorithms mentioned: Las Vegas and Monte Carlo. And can somebody tell me what is the Las Vegas algorithm? And what is the Monte Carlo algorithm? What's the difference? Can you hear me well? Can somebody respond whether you could hear me?
Sir, yes, we heard you.
Yeah,
So
you could hear
a
me.
Las Vegas algorithm gives us the correct output. The running time is not bounded, whereas for a Monte Carlo algorithm, it runs for a specific time, and the probability of giving the correct answer is less than or equal to one.
Very good. Did everyone get that? And are there any questions? If there is anything which is not clear, so Las Vegas algorithm. So first of all, we know that you cannot, the output of a randomized algorithm on the same input can be different at different times, right? Because it takes the input X, your algorithm, and it consults some random number generator, some strings, randomness along the way, and it gives the output. So for the same input, depending on this randomness, the output may differ at different times. Okay, but then how can we really use this algorithm if for the same input it may just give some different answers different times, right? Yes. So that's a problem. That's why we want, there is a lot of work in analyzing randomized algorithms. Now, how can the output differ? There are two ways in which it will differ. One is that the output will always be correct, but the time it takes may differ based on the random input it consults. The second way is that it takes the same time all the time, but the output may be different, meaning, it's typically used for a decision question, whether you are asking yes or no. Is the number prime? Um, is the number sorted? Is AX equal to B? For those questions, Monte Carlo algorithm sometimes may give a wrong answer. When it's supposed to be yes, it might say no. When it's supposed to be no, it might say yes. So then we worry about and I worry about probability of error here. And here we talk about probability of, time is bigger than something, because the time is a random variable here. So we talk about expected time and talk about time, what is the probability that the time will be more. Here we talk about the probability of error. Sometimes the algorithm may be wrong. Whenever we talk about probability, you should immediately, go back to your first lecture. There is a sample space, there is some experiments being done. So when you say probability, sort of like average, what you've learned in your school. But then you should always ask average over what. Okay, this is very important. Average over what. So, for example, you've seen that quicksort takes n log n time expected. Expected or on average. Now, can somebody tell me average over what? Yeah? Hello? Quicksort is n log n expected. N log n
So average over the different inputs that we take from a random space, uniformly distributed random space basically. So inputs are random basically. They are uniformly distributed over a range, and from that range we pick up many different input instances.
Okay.
So for those input instances, we take the expected
Can you tell
time.
me? Okay. Can you tell me your quicksort algorithm first, very briefly? What is your quicksort algorithm?
So we pick up a pivot randomly,
We pick a pivot randomly. Okay. Then
right?
partition,
And yeah,
and
we
recurse.
generally we partition and recurse over the left and right, whatever applicable.
Perfect. Okay. So you pick a random pivot, partition, or and okay. Now, so where is the input distribution? So Badri is asking this question. Isn't the analysis independent of the input? Yes, because it doesn't matter what the input is. Quicksort is n log n on the average. So it's not really. I mean, there are versions of quicksort where you assume something about the input and do average over the input distribution. But the quicksort you described to me now is not input dependent because you pick
Is
a
it
random
average
pivot
of
and
the
then
elements
partition,
we are
then recurse on the left and recurse on the right. So average over what then?
average over the elements we are picking elements of the
I
array?
couldn't hear you. Whoever was speaking.
Over the elements we are picking, like the pivots we are picking.
Over the pivots we are picking. Okay, Mudit says average by averaging over the recurrence. Sanjay says permutations of input array. Well, we said no, it doesn't depend on the. I mean, average is not over permutations of the input array because
It's
for
over the
every
multiple.
permutation,
It's over the
quicksort is
runs
n
of
log
the
n on
algorithm,
average.
right? Like
Okay.
if I run this algorithm once and then twice, then
Averaging over the recurrence is sort of right. Now, so somebody said about the pivot we pick. So our algorithm has a certain randomness built into it, right? Randomized algorithm picks. So there is this randomness. So when we say average over expected is n log n, meaning average over all these random bits. Try all possible values for these random bits for the same input. For the same input. Input we are not changing. We are not averaging over the input. Okay. So you have to be extremely clear about this. There is a version of quicksort, but that's not a randomized quicksort. That's a deterministic quicksort where you average over input and argue about it. But the quicksort you saw, where you randomly pick the pivot, so that is a random choice you are making, and it's not one choice. You pick the first choice, you pick, and then things keep changing. So you are picking a lot of random choices. So now for the same input, if you average over all possible random choices, the average turns out to be n log n. So in particular, for the same input, for some random choices, the time may be n square, right? Because average of a bunch of things is 75. It doesn't mean that everybody is 75. There will be a lot of people who will be above 75. A lot of people will be below 75. So when we say average over all random choices is n log n, there will be some random choices for which it will be less than n log n. There will be some random choices for which it will be greater than n log n. And we actually know that there are some random choices where it is actually n square. Okay, so this is something to keep in mind. So when you say average, meaning it's average over the random choices you make in the algorithm. So in the sense, averaging over the recurrence and so on, yes, when you formally analyze it, but it is just average over all these random choices. Okay, good. So now, so what I am going to do is continue with more examples of randomized algorithms in the first part, and then we'll talk about some tail inequalities in the second part of my lecture. So now I'm going to talk about this communication complexity and recall what we told you is the deterministic complexity of equality function is greater than or equal to n. Do you remember this? Can somebody tell me what that means? In the communication complexity protocol, there is an Alice and Bob. Alice has X, Bob has Y, and together they want to understand whether X and Y are same. And what we didn't prove it, but we sort of said it. Yes, can't do better than just sending the entire bit string. And so the communication required for both of them to understand whether X and Y are same is at least n in the deterministic case. But I'm going to give you two randomized protocols where we are going to beat this n, beat the space bound or the communication bound. Okay. So today, what I'm going to tell you is randomized. It's actually, one way. You don't even need to do multiple passes. I'll give you two bounds. First, I will give you a log n bound, and then I'll give you a constant communication bound. They differ in the way they use the random bits. I'll get to that when I explain them. But this is impressive that in the deterministic world, you can't beat n, but using randomized protocol, you can actually do much faster. Okay, with much less communication. So that's the goal we want to do now. And this is the power of randomization. I want you to understand. Okay? In the case of sorting, it's not such a powerful thing. Quick sort is n log n on expected case, but in the worst case, also we can do it in n log n time. There is merge sort, there is heap sort. So it's not that you cannot do it in n log n in the worst case. Whereas here we have a lower bound that you cannot do better than n communication, but I'm going to give you simple protocols where you can actually do it with log n communication or constant communication. But of course, this will have some probability of error, and the beauty is that you can actually make this error as small as possible. Okay, so let's get to that. And again, when I say randomized, you should ask yourself randomized over what. When you say probability over what, and things like that, always keep these questions in your mind. And another thing I would say is, people often use randomly, pick a random input where they actually mean arbitrary input. Okay, I want you to just get this practice. When you say, oh, I'll pick a random edge in the graph, random is a loaded word, at least from now onwards for you. So you better say arbitrary edge. That is not loaded. When you say random, immediately there is a distribution, there is an experiment, there is something you are doing. Okay. Okay, good. So let's talk about the communication protocol. So what is the problem? Given Alice is given a string X, which is an n-bit string. So okay, it's a 0-1 bit string. Bob is given an n-bit string. Yeah. So let's call this, A1, A2 up to AN. Okay. So what they are going to do, remember the protocol is known to both of them. So what is the algorithm they are going to follow is decided beforehand. Remember yesterday when you were, the previous day when you were actually playing this game on finding the median, you're already told, the first number I will tell you is how many are bigger than 16. Second number you will tell you is what is the value, and so on and so forth, right? So similarly, the protocol, this is the protocol they'll follow. So what we'll do, we'll pick a field of size n square. Field is the algebraic field you have learned in your there is always such a field because there is always a prime of this size, and you can pick 0, 1, 2, 3 up to p minus 1. That's a field over addition and multiplication. Okay, this is a fixed field. There is no randomness here. It's a fixed field of size n square because they know n, so they can figure this field first and they exchange. They tell what is this field. Here comes the randomness. Pick a random. It's okay. Pick a field F. Pick a random R in F. This is random, which means I'll pick any one of the elements in the field at random. Okay. Compute V equal to, in this field, summation AI R power I equal to 1 to n. Okay, it's the field, there's a multiplication, is all well defined, and A1, A2 are all 0, 1 string. So I will just multiply by R. Think of this AI as coefficients of this polynomial of degree n, and compute this AI R power I. R is some random number I picked from this field, and compute this value. And what I'm going to send, so A sends V and R. That's the communication. Okay, communication has happened now. A is computed all this and sent V and R. How much communication have we spent? How many bits of information have you spent? Yes, anybody? We have sent 2 numbers, that's all, right? Shravan asks log n. Okay, I mean, I'll wait for others to answer before you can try and justify me why this is log n. When you say log n, I assume order log n, right?
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? It's not a hard problem. You're sending a number R. R, how much space will it take? R is in the field 1 to n, 0 n square, so it's order log n. And V is another element in the field because field is closed under multiplication. All we are doing is doing these additions and multiplications. And so you get another field element V. Both of them take log n bits, so it's order log n bits of communication is what I have sent. Okay, so A is sent. Now it's B's call to decide whether to, okay, so this is Y, whether X and Y are same or not. So this is what B is going to do. Okay, so yeah, okay. So let me write this as V of X, right? V is just some polynomial, V of X or V of X comma R. R is fixed anyway. R is also sent to B. So B says equal if V of Y is equal to V of X and not equal otherwise. So what B does, the moment it gets the R and B, it takes the R and evaluates, Bob evaluates his value, which is, B1, B2, Bn, on that polynomial on the same R, and computes this value. If those values is the same as value of X, it's going to say, yeah, both these numbers are equal. And otherwise, it's going to say they are not equal. Okay. So that's all. The protocol is done. We have analyzed the space communication complexity already. Now, what do we need to do? We need to analyze the error probability, right? Because B may be wrong sometimes. When B says they are equal, actually they may be not equal, or if B says not equal, they may be equal. I don't know. We'll analyze this. Okay. So all right. So here is the claim. If X is equal to Y, what is the probability that B is correct? B correctly answers. Wow. Sanjay says 1. Okay, really? Okay. Anybody else? Thank you. I like these answers. Okay. Please keep sending them. Doesn't matter whether right or wrong. I want you to just participate, think. So here is the protocol. Let's look at it. Wouldn't it depend on R? Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. So, I mean, there are two things we have to analyze. If X is equal to Y, what happens? If X is not equal to Y, what happens, right? These are the two things we need to argue. If X is equal to I, what happens? Well, you are given this 2-bit strings. Our woman Alice evaluates her polynomial at R and sends R and B. Since these two polynomials are same, B, when it evaluates on the same R, because R has been sent to B also, R is same. So when B evaluates, Bob is going to get the same answer, and so he's going to declare correctly that both the values are same. So Sanjay Seep is correct that probability that B is correct is 1. Okay. Now let's say if X is not equal to Y, what is the probability that B is, let's talk about B is wrong. Well, this is exactly the probability that V of Y is equal to V of X, right? Because X and Y are not same, but B is going to be wrong because B evaluated his string on this R on this polynomial and got it to be same. So he will think that the X and Y are same and is going to answer same. If these two are different, then of course B is going to be correct. So probability that B is wrong is the probability that the value of Y and value of X is same. What is the probability over? This is the question I want you to keep thinking about.
Over the field which you defined.
No, field is fixed. Field is deterministic. What is the random?
Over the values in the field.
Sorry?
We have picked. Over the values in the field that we have.
Over the values of the R, because R is the one which is random. Field is a deterministic field. Both of them agree and exchange and say, here is the field we are going to work on. But the R is the random value that's being picked. Okay, so fine. So let's just keep that in mind. So when probability that V of Y and V of X, B will be wrong. This is the same as probability that A1 R plus a2 r square plus an r power n turns out to be the same as y string b1 r plus b2 r square plus bn r power n. Because then only, because this is what B is computing and this is what A is computing, they turn out to be the same. For that particular value of R, of course, A and B are different because X and Y are different. So these coefficients are, some of them are different, but R is the same. Well, when does this happen? Let's see. This is the same as probability that
A1
A1
equal to
minus
B1 equal.
B1 into R plus A2 minus B2 into R square plus an minus bn into power is equal to 0. But notice that this whole polynomial is not a zero polynomial. Why not? Because x and y are different. So some ai, bi will be different. So this whole polynomial is not a zero polynomial. But when we evaluate it at r, somehow this polynomial becomes 0. Well, when does that happen? When r happens to be the root of the polynomial. If you replace r by x, then this is the same as the probability that r is the root of, whatever, it doesn't matter, x power x plus something, x square plus I didn't have this constant term at all, but yeah, maybe I should have written a0 and an minus 1. So let's write that just to be uniform. So suppose so now R is a random element from this field of size n square. Okay. Now how many roots are there for this polynomial?
n.
At most n. This is where we use the fact that we are working on a field. In any field, any n degree polynomial will have at most n roots, right? So if I pick r as a random number in out of these n square values, what is the probability that r is the root? It's at most n by n square. Because there are n square values, I have choices. And if I manage to pick any of these root, then I get into this problem. So this is 1 over n. Which means probability that B is correct if x not equal to y is greater than or equal to 1 minus 1 by n. Yes? We are done. So I have given you a probability analysis. Now, the field size is of my choice. For example, if I want to increase this probability, I pick up a field of size n power 5. Okay? The number of roots will continue to be n because this polynomial has only n roots, at most n roots. So it will be 1 by n power 4. So, but the size of the communication will still be order log n, but the constant increases a little bit because it's not 2 log n, maybe 4 log n. So if I choose a field of size n power 4, then with probability 1 minus 1 by 10 cubed, which is like 1000, 1 by, so that means 999 out of 1000 times I will be correct. Okay. Now there is another way where you can actually increase the probability. There are two ways you can do it. One is just increase the field size. The other thing I can do is to repeat this whole experiment. Try a different R. And the probability that I'm going to fail in every such R is now the probability will get multiplied because these are independent probabilities, independent events. And so you can boost up the probability even there. Boost up the correct probability even more, or you can bring down the error probability even more. Okay, is that clear? Are there any questions? Put a +1 if you understand the whole thing, and -1 are questions if you have any. Very good. So remember, in deterministic case, I mean, this is very simple, you can teach it to some high school student, right? It's very powerful. Anybody who understands linear algebra, field, polynomial, bit string, that's all you need to know. And it's very powerful that if there are two strings and you want to determine equality, it needs n bits of communication. Okay, that proof you cannot teach it to a high school student. That is a little more sophisticated. The fact that you can actually do it in order log n communication is very powerful. This is good. Okay, so now I'm going to move on and give you another communication protocol. And here again, randomized, but it's private. I'll tell you what that means. Equality n is actually order 1. It's enough to tell you one bit of communication. You don't even need to supply an index. Just some constant bit is enough to determine this equality with a very high probability. Okay. So what do I mean by private? So, sorry, it's actually public. Yeah, this is public. So what here means is that the R, the random thing which I used was private. Alice picked it up, so Alice has to convey that information to Bob. Okay, but suppose the whatever random thing they pick is public, which means that they both publicly toss coins and pick their random bits, and then based on the random thing they do something privately. Whatever they do, we don't know. I mean, each one has a separate different string anyway, and based on this output of the random coin tosses which happen in public, they go and apply it on their string and get some information and pass it on. Okay, and that's what they're going to do. So what is it they're going to do? So there is R and R prime, two random n-bit strings. Okay, this is sort of the power of the model. You could complain about it. That's okay. If you like the other model, you can settle for order log n. But here it's fun to know that something you can do. So suppose I have two random n-bit strings which are public. That means both A and Alice and Bob see that. Okay, and each one has an X, which is A1 to AN, and Alice gets Y, which is B1 to BN. So what they are going to do is, or what Alice is going to do, is compute the inner product X dot R and X dot R prime. Okay, what does this inner product means? It is basically AI into Ri, I equal to 1 to n, mod 2. So it's, in fact, and similarly, summation I equal to 1 to n, AI Ri prime mod 2. So, right? So this will be like 1 to 1 0 0 0 0 1. So, and they take this random bit which comes out and do a pointwise multiplication of each of these coordinates and take their parity and that is what is x dot r. Similarly, Alice computes x dot r prime and sends these two information. And remember, it's a parity. So this is 1 bit, this is 1 bit. So this 2 bits of information is what is sent to Bob. Okay. So it's sort of like cheating where these random bits are known already in public, but that's okay. X is not known to B, Y is not known to A. So now what Bob is going to do is Bob will say these two strings are equal if x dot r is equal to y dot r and x dot r prime is equal to y dot. Remember, these are mod 2. Okay, when I say x dot r definition itself, I'm going to include mod 2. So these two, so Bob will evaluate y dot r and y dot r prime because Bob only knows y, and he got x dot r parity and x dot r prime from Alice. If these two values are equal, Bob is going to say your two strings are equal and say no otherwise. Okay, so now again, let's do a very similar kind of analysis. Is there a is the protocol clear? Okay, so put +1 if you understand the protocol. Otherwise, ask questions. Okay, good. Thank you. I get the +1s from the same set of people. I don't know what's happening with the different set of people. I want to hear either questions or put +1. Yeah, is there a question? In fact, yeah, okay, fine. So now let's come back and do the same analysis. Probability that B is correct when X is equal to Y. What is this probability? Yeah? Anybody? Let me show the protocol again.
Can you go back to the
Here is the protocol. Okay. X is given, A is given an n-bit string, B is given an n-bit string, and they pick up these two random n-bit strings and compute this inner product x dot r summation ai ri mod 2 summation ai ri prime mod 2 on the same ri, of course. So y also computes the same, and if these two are same, Bob is going to say yes, correct, otherwise no. So if x is equal to y, what is the probability that Bob is going to be correct?
So could it be 1 by n or like I'm not sure, like 1
So
over
let's
n?
do from the first principle. Suppose x is equal to y. Okay. Don't just guess. Suppose x is equal to y. Now we will compute x dot r and we get a bit. Y x dot r prime, we get a bit. We compute y dot r. What do we get? It's the same bit because x and y are same. We compute y dot r prime. It's the same. Y is the same as x, same r prime. So you will get the same, and these two will evaluate to the same. So why would B make an error? It is 1 with probability
What
1. Yeah.
what if the bits in x and r or r prime are interchanged? So I mean, will that not affect the value of x dot r or x dot r prime? Like,
Nothing interchange. R and R prime is fixed. These
okay,
are
okay,
random
okay.
bits, I agree.
Okay.
These are
Okay.
random bits, but they are, you got the
Fixed.
values and fixed. It's the same
Okay,
R. So they toss n coins, they see the outcome, both of them see the same outcome. That's why it's called a public coins, right? And then only thing they don't know is A doesn't know B's input, B doesn't know A's input. They know the same R prime. So now I compute this inner product and compute just the parity. Compute this inner product, just the parity. When x and y are equal, they are going to do the same thing and they will get the same answer. And so y would be right with probability 1. When we do the other analysis, you will see. Okay, so Sapna is asking, why do we pick only one bit, two random strings? Why not just use one string? We'll see when we do the analysis. For the other case, you will see why we are using 2-bit strings. Okay? Please repeat the private concept. Okay. Okay, let me just finish this. Okay. You mean the concept or the protocol? The private thing is that A chooses something tosses a coin privately. So only A knows the outcome of the random bit he tosses or she tosses. Similarly, Y chooses a coin and picks a random bit. Only Y knows it. Okay, and that's why A actually has to send R to Y in the earlier protocol, because Y does not know that R. Whereas in this public world, both of them see the same R, so they know it. Okay, so let's proceed and look at what is the probability that B is wrong when X is not equal to Y. Well, this is the error part. This is exactly the probability that X dot R is equal to Y dot R and X dot R prime is equal to Y dot R prime. Well, let us analyze. This is symmetric because R and R prime are just other bit strings. It's enough to, let's look at what is the probability that X dot R is equal to Y dot R given that X is not equal to Y.
Application.
Question? Okay. So, well, this is X is not equal to Y. So let's say, so suppose X is not equal to Y. So suppose AI is not equal to BI. If there is some bit, there may be more than one bit. There may be lots of bits where they are different. But at least there is one bit where ith bit, let's say, where A and B are different. Okay. So then so what is the probability that I want to know X dot R minus Y dot R is equal to 0? Again, it's all parity, okay? And R is a random bit string. Given that AI is not equal to BI. Well, let's look at X dot R minus Y dot R. This is same as summation AI minus BI into RI mod 2. Great, because this is exactly the definition. X dot R is summation AI RI, Y dot R is summation, okay, then I should say AJ because I is something we have fixed. Now this is equal to AI minus BI into RI plus summation AJ minus BJ J equal to 1 to N J not equal to I. Because everything mod 2. So what are the random values here?
R and
A's and B's are fixed. RI's are the random value. Sorry, here also there is an RJ. R's are the random guys. Okay. So now let's look at this. And see when this will be 0. Okay. We are again, remember, we are looking at parity. This is non-zero. Why? Because we assumed AI and not equal to BI. So this is non-zero. Ri is something random between 1 and 0, either a 0 or 1. And then these numbers are random. So this number you will get, let's look at this. We're talking about parity again. Look at this parity. This parity is odd or even, okay, or 0 or 1. Let's say odd means 1 and even means 0. Okay? So this parity is 0 or 1. I don't know. It depends on the RIs. Because AJ minus BJs are fixed. It depends on the RJ. So there are, for different choices of RJ, you will get different 0 or 1. Okay, let's not even worry about it. But suppose this parity is odd. When will this whole thing be 0? 0, remember 0 means even. Let's look at it. 0 means even, 1 means odd. Okay, so suppose this parity is even and I want this whole thing to be even. When can that happen? For what value of Ri will this happen? Will it happen that this is 0?
Then Ri will be 0.
When Ri is 0, right? Because when Ri has only 0 or 1. When Ri is 1, this quantity is non-zero, so it will get multiplied. So it will be whatever the parity of this is. Okay. Well, yeah. Even then, yeah. So what is it I want to claim? I want to say that this error is at most half. Because I mean, you have to. This is sort of a clever argument that you have to do this average or probability over all possible RIs. So for now, I'm just saying you run it over all possible RIs except RJs except RI. Okay, regardless of whatever the average probability you get, there is exactly one value of Ri for which this quantity would be even. And similarly, if this happens to be odd, then if there's exactly one value of this for which this Ri will be, there's exactly one value of Ri for which this whole thing would be even. So what I want to claim, what I'm saying is that that probability is at most half anyway, or it's exactly half. Yeah, in fact, we are seeing that there are other ways in which it can happen. Okay, so this is my claim. Okay, so this is sort of a deferred conditional probability kind of thing. So if you fix everything else, or if you vary everything else, there is a unique value of Ri for which this happens to be 0. And so that unique value Ri will take with probability half, because Ri is a completely random variable. It takes 0 or 1, with each with probability half. Okay. Now, by a symmetric argument, probability that x dot r prime minus y dot r prime is equal to 0 given ai not equal to bi is also at most half. So both these are independent because r and r prime are independently chosen random variables. So B is wrong when both happen, right? Even though x and y are different, but x dot r and y dot r happen to be the same, and x dot r prime, y dot r prime. So probability that B will be wrong is at most what? Half into half, so it is 1/4, because I want x dot r and y dot r to be same. That happens with probability at most half. And I want y dot x dot r prime and y dot r prime to be the same, and that happens with probability at most half. So with probability at most 1/4, b will be wrong. So b will be correct. It'd be greater than or equal to 3/4.
So we did the analysis when x dot r is equal to y dot r, and also for x dot r prime is equal to y dot r prime. Is
Yeah.
so is it not possible for x dot r minus y dot r to be some non-zero, but x dot r prime minus y dot r prime to be 0?
Yes, but in that case, our friend will say it is not equal. He would be correct. So we would answer equal only if both happen to be equal.
Yes,
If
sir,
only one
so-
of them is equal, the other one is not equal, he is going to say they are not equal, and he would be correct. So the wrong thing happens only if both happen to be equal.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now, why is the probability less than or equal to half instead of exactly half? Well, I mean, maybe you're right, but the point is there are so many things that's happening. So even though, for example, even though if yeah, so if Ri equal to 0, this will become 0, and so it will give you whatever you want. When Ri is 1, maybe Ai minus. Okay, these are all everything happening mod 2. Everything happening mod 2. So yes, I think you can say it's exactly 2. Yeah, this probability would be exactly half. Yeah. Okay, the other thing is that we have only pulled out one AI and BI, but maybe there are so many other AIs and BIs which are wrong, but even then, I think it's okay. Yeah, so that particular, yeah, I think it's exactly half. Okay, so I'm just going to put a question mark here. You can verify, but you know, even if it's exactly half, less than or equal to half is correct. So now, somebody had a question why you are picking two random strings and why not only one? You get an answer from the analysis? Because we actually want our success probability to be strictly more than half. Because we want it to be strictly more than just a random guesswork.
By taking more random inputs like of size n, like r prime, r double prime, and so on, we can even improve it.
Okay. So if you want to boost the probability, I can take more random strings. Yes. Then it will actually, 1 by 2 power I if I pick I random strings. Yes. Other, yeah. Yes. But then you'll be spending. So what is the trade-off? There is always a trade-off, right? So yes, if you take more random strings, everything is public anyway, then this quantity would be half into half into half into half into. So error probability comes down, success probability goes down. Where do you pay for it? There must be somewhere you should pay, right?
The bits we pass increases.
Sorry?
The number of bits we send between
Exactly.
Alice and Bob.
Exactly. Number of bits we sent, because what are we sending? We are sending these two values, 2 bits. But when you have more things, you are going to send more things here. That's okay. I mean, there is a trade-off. So you figure out what is reasonable. Go up to log n. If you're allowing log n bits, maybe you will have a 1 by n probability. But anyway, the probability is not so great compared to our earlier probability there again, right? Because we had something very good. Can we send a ternary higher string? And then finally you will do mod 3, mod 2 kind of thing. Okay, maybe you can play around and check how it works. So anyway, so here is the end of the analysis, and you get a feel for how we will do error analysis on this Monte Carlo algorithms, and you see where we are using all this field and inner product, parity, all these informations. We've seen public versus private. So public, in my view, is sort of like cheating because it's, and I'd still say something. Okay. But net, we have substantially beaten deterministic protocol. So if you are willing to allow some error, then you can do. But the point again is that we cannot arbitrarily do something, do some guesswork, do some randomly and so on, because you have to really carefully analyze the whole thing. And what is happening in this whole probabilistic analysis is that we are opening up over all possible random strings and then trying to analyze the whole thing. So it's quite involved. Okay? And that's what goes on into this when you open up this analysis. Okay, good. I am just going to take a 5 minutes break, and then I'll come back and continue with the tail analysis and other things.